Okay. Give me a second. I'm trying to pull up another material on my other laptop here. I think it's just something else. All right, Amaka, thanks. I think I see you are recording already. Thank you. Um, we need to actually have someone, man this session recording and the co-hosting activity, right, Amaka? So if you can discuss, align with the community management team and have someone, work with you on this. I think I would appreciate that, so you can, spend spend your time on, on other activities. Yeah, because you're already doing a lot. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, let's just discuss fast API. I'm not going to go into like so much detail when we are using it for development. I'm sure we'll dive into most of those details. I'll just touch on the fundamentals here. It's pretty straightforward. If you have any prior experience using uh, what's it called, Flask with Python, then I'm sure it shouldn't be a big deal. But yeah, I mean, if you don't have any experience using Flask, maybe you've done like some API thing um, in other languages, right? I'm sure this should be straightforward. Now, I think for the session, I'm going to mostly, like focus on people that have not done anything API development or web development before, right? I'm sure we have two or three people that mentioned in the other class that they've not done anything around that before. So yeah, this session is mostly going to explain how APIs work. Um, talk about JSON, right? And basically, I'll be using diagrams to explain while also showing like a sample code. Okay. So I hope, yeah. All right. Let's get started. So I'm currently sharing my screen. I am showing you the. Let me share everything instead. Let's quit some of these apps here to avoid any distractions. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, so for those of us that haven't done, anything around APIs before, this is where we're starting from, right? We'll talk about APIs. We'll also discuss Fast API here, which is a framework we are using. I would explain, what a framework is. Please do well to ask. When I mention some of these things, I would like it if you guys ask questions like this. I mentioned framework. Ask what is a framework. If you don't know what it is, so we can also dive, deeper into that. And right here, since we're here on the call, I would also pull up maybe Perplexity. So while we're mentioning some things, we can simply search for some of these things and get feedback from from the AI tool here. If you haven't used Perplexity before, it's a good tool. Yeah, I think I would say it's one of the most correct AI chat service, right? It gives you, I mean, it does deep research and it gives you really up-to-date information. I'm even surprised that I am not signed in. Wow, that's interesting. I was thinking I was signed in already here. Let's do this real quick. All right. Okay, so we're going to discuss APIs. Fast API is the framework of choice that we are going to be using here. So API means application programming interface. Okay, we'll discuss when we say framework, we'll talk about that. And then, of course, I already mentioned, the whole thing about software development, from a high level. There are some details that, I won't be diving, so much into. But yeah, at the end of the day, what we are doing when we're building APIs, we are doing software development. Let me give you an example. Let's say, I woke up tomorrow and I'm asking you guys on the team, build me an application that we can use to get um, the most recent, let's say the most recent dollar to naira rate. Okay, or maybe that's too much. But let me use something easier, right? Build me an application that I can use to get the most recent price for uh, a certain type of product. So let's assume that let's assume we sell food. How many of you know Chowdeck? Chowdeck. Okay. So let's say how many of you know Chowdeck in Lagos or Jumia Food? Okay, nice. All right. So let's say Child Deck or Jumia Food. You are asked to build. Maybe one of these companies employ you, and they say, "Alawiye, build us uh, like an interface or a service that we can use to get latest meals and prices from Jumia Food." So Jumia Food here is a company, right? The company is Jumia Food. This is Jumia Food right here, or Child Deck. Okay. Now they have let's assume they prepare the food, right? I don't know whether they prepare the food, but this is an assumption. Or let me just say Mav's food. Yeah, Mav food. So let's say Mav has a company called Mav Food, and Mav has chefs, so Mav has chefs, or chefs, whatever you choose to call it. So Mav has chef, Mav has three chefs. Let's say Mav has Hannah. Hannah is a chef. Let's say Mav has kids, right? And Josh, okay, Joshua, okay. So chef one, chef two, chef three. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Welcome. So we have chef one, chef two, chef three. These are their names. These are the chefs, and Mav Food is the company, okay. And in the company, Mav actually has like a kitchen. So let's say there's an arm of this business called Mav's Kitchen, right? So we have Mav's Food, and Mav's Food has a division called Mav's Kitchen. Maybe Mav's Food also has a division called Mav's Logistics. All right. So this is inside of our example. So the kitchen would, of course, prepare the food, right? They prepare the meal. Okay. So you have the kitchen prepare the meal, okay, and you have the logistics division distributes the meal or the food, whatever, yeah, just to call this. Okay, so this is basically what happens at Mav's Food. Okay, two division, the kitchen division as well as the delivery division. All right. So now that we have this under Mav's kitchen, Mav has the chefs, right? And of course, other staffs. But let's focus on the chefs. Now, what the chefs do regularly is to, prepare the, let's say this is their job description. So they prepare the meat, the food, they prepare the, let's say, food calendar first, and they also prepare the food, right? Maybe they also allocate, price tag to the food. Okay, so I'll give an example. They say they sell jollof rice with chicken and maybe well, let's say chivita. Yeah, I love chivita because I love to be active all the time. Right? Good. And now the chefs are basically saying this is going for let's say 8,000 naira. right? Now, this is the price that they've set for that day, okay? Let's assume these are things they have to check every day because, the price of these things are not always stable, all right? When they set this price, they are simply going to maybe do this on like like an Excel sheet, okay? So they have someone working with them to do this. Let's say they work with the operations team. Now, this is me giving you a combination of business operation. For some of you that will be taking notes, once we are done, let's start a business. By the way, just in case you don't know, I actually have a food business, right? I have a food business called My Love. That's the name of the brand, right? Currently operational in Ogun State. So yeah, that's where this idea is coming from. Before you ask yourself, this thing that Marv is doing, should we suspect him? You don't have to suspect me. I've confessed. All right, so let me move this to a cleaner space. Okay, so I have a food business. I also have a logistics, delivery business, currently operating with two bikes. So at least so you know, and I'm looking to expand. In case you want to give me like 100 million, I am open to accepting it. All right, so we have Mavs Logistics, we have Mavs Kitchen, and then we have chefs. And also, one of my chefs' name is called Hannah. That's why it came in at number one. Okay, I know Amaka is here. Amaka should be laughing in the background already. Yeah. So so this is what it looks like. The chefs, since they will be the one to go to the markets, when they come back, they say, oh, this price is going to change because today things has changed, right? And then they discuss with the operations team and the kitchen manager to update the price. So this is their activity. And in a day, they come together to say, they are going to set price. Okay. So let's say food pricing. Now, this is more like a module, for example. They tell you these three combination, this guy, and this guy. This is a combo, and this combo is going for, 8,000 naira. All right. So, sorry, I really have to quit this. Sorry. Okay. All right, so this is the combo going for 8,000 naira. And now with this combo, they've set this price. We have another business. This business right now happens to be, a company that is, vastly recognized, and they're recognized because, they have a platform for what we call aggregation. Now, the term aggregation simply means, a company that brings something together, right? So they bring something. If I say we have, food aggregator, it means aggregator. It means they bring different food items, maybe like the price as well, from different channels, different websites. Okay. So let's assume this food aggregation business is owned by, let me see some of the names I have here. I can see Marvelous One. Okay. So Marvelous One is a business owner, right? Let's say a businessman. And yeah, I hope Marvelous One. Are you a man, a business person? Let's just, yeah, I know a lot of women answer Marvelous too, right? Just like, okay. So Marvelous One, a business person, decides to start a food aggregator business. And now Marvelous One decides to say, oh, I am going to meet, Chowdeck. I am going to meet Jumia Foods. And I'm going to meet Mavs Foods, right? Okay. And when I meet these companies, I want to have a website. So now this is a website. I want to have a website where I will be able to, do what we call food listing, right? So food from different kitchen, right, owned by different people. And at the end of the day, people can place order from my site to purchase them. So Marvelous One does not have a kitchen business here. They don't have a logistic business. They just want you to come in and place order on their website because they have varieties of different food, different price, and they can come in one day to tell their customers, oh, you can filter by price and get some of the best deals, right, on our websites. Okay, so let's just call this, a food listing and food deals. Okay, so they wake up one day and they say, oh, we are having Black Friday sales, which means a lot of people will be coming, on this website to place orders. So instead of going to Maps, if Map has a website, instead of going to Map's website or going to Child Deck or going to Jumia Food, Everybody is simply going to come here. Now, the question is, how do they get this food, and how do they get this food item at the price that the organization, or each of these companies or businesses have set, right? Let me take this again. I'm going to do like a run through. Okay, we're trying to explain software development and API. That's what I'm trying to describe here. So I want you guys to understand this from a real life perspective. We're not just talking about opening fast API documentation and jumping into code, right? In fact, now that we have a lot of AI out there, it's easy. It's relatively easy to come up with these things. But what you have to understand is, what exactly are you trying to do? How to do it is not a problem. With or without AI, you can Google your way through, doing some of these things, asking questions. But you must understand, the motive of using APIs, right? And what you can achieve with, building APIs. Okay. So we have a company here called Mav Foods. We have two other companies, I mentioned them here. We have Chowdeck and Jumia Food. Now, what do these guys have in common? They basically, distribute and sell food. Whether they produce the food or not is none of our business for now. We have a fourth company here called Marvelous One's, platform, right? So let's call this platform food. Okay, let's call them My Foods. Okay. All right, so let's call this platform My Foods. Now, My Foods is a platform that does, a food aggregator, right? They are a food aggregator. They do food aggregation. What do I mean? Food listing and aggregation. By the way, if I come here, let me show you. When I mentioned that there's a food, this is a food business I referred to, and we actually started building My Foods. My Foods is the brand, right? We started building My Foods to basically do, food listing. Okay. So this is actually something that is currently in the works. This platform right now is going to list food from different platforms. If all of you here have, food platforms, My Foods is going to list all these foods on their website. So you have to, put the food somewhere, and then you have to give them some sort of access so they can list the food. They have a lot of customer base. They have, let's say, 2 million users, right? For example, this is not so much, but yeah, let's just say they have 5 million users, and out of these 5 million users, they have, 1 million, let's say, active users, which means in a day, at least 1 million people order food from them, you know. Um, let's say we really want to tap into their network, and we choose to partner with them. Right now, Mav Foods have their, logistics. They have kitchen, so which means if you order from Mav Foods, their logistics will deliver. Jumia Food most likely have, their logistics as well. Child Deck also have their logistics. Now, when Mav's Kitchen, the chefs, of course, when they prepare the food calendar, that food calendar is also going to reflect here on the My Foods website, and the specific food prices that they've set would also reflect here. Now, the way this would get to their database, you might not, you might tell yourself, we don't need to worry about this. But yeah, I mean, it also makes sense if I point out a particular strategy. So the strategy I'll point out here is that every detail here goes into like an Excel sheet, right? From picture, the food name, the food description, and the food price, right? It goes into an Excel sheet. It is vetted by this guy. So everything here is entered into like a Google Sheets file, okay? Right? And when it's entered into that Google Sheet file, you have a Python script that automatically, takes all the items. Let's just do that straight here. Takes all the items from the Google Sheet file and ingests them into a Postgres database. Okay, so just to be sure, if you don't know what I mean by Postgres database, Postgres is a database type. Okay, so Postgres is a relational database type. Now, if you want me to dive into relational databases, we'll discuss that maybe in the next class. Okay, but yeah, I mean, I think it's good that if you don't have any idea what it is, just point that out, drop it in the chat so that we can go through it. Please drop it in the chat, Alawi, and maybe Blessing. Take note of that so we can discuss it in the next class, right? We have different types of databases, but the point of a database is a place where you can store, these files, right? most especially the, oh, thank you. Okay, so take note of that. I'll discuss it in the next class. A database is simply a container where you can store your data, your textual data. Yes, you can store images and yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, you are storing them as textual data. So we have database, textual data, right? Some people will say, oh, unstructured data. Yeah, basically, that is what it is. You can store unstructured textual data. Um, Now, I mentioned storage, so that you guys don't get it confused. When I say storage, we have object storage, right? Object storage is where you store things like file, video, documents, of course, pictures. Okay. Can you store some of these things in a database? Yes, you can convert them into like base 64, strings. It will be very heavy. We don't recommend storing objects in databases, right? You store objects in containers like Cloudflare, Arrow2, yeah, Cloudinary. These are platforms where you can store things like that. Arrow2, Cloudinary, S3 buckets, right? So yeah, these are for like a different class. Meanwhile, for database, you have like Postgres, you have MySQL, which I believe you might have heard of before. You also have MongoDB, which is NoSQL, right? We'll discuss all this later, okay? Just take note of that. In the next class, we'll dive deep into this and I'll show you an example on how to set up this kind of thing. So yeah, let me just put this on one side. All right, so the Python script is simply going to, take the file from your Google Sheets, right? And it will then, put it in that database, okay? It will put it in that database. Let me see if I have any. Okay, I don't have any of those images. Um, Interesting. I used to have, wow, okay. Uh, wow, okay. I really don't have any. I used to have a lot of objects here that I could just download and throw in there. So yeah, the database would then hold these items, right? So all these items will be in database. Yeah, there will be processes for updating the records, processes for deleting records and all that. We call it CRUD. So you would have a way to create, read, updates, that is updates and delete, right? Anyway, when we start, building like a sample API, you'll see how this would work in action. Okay, now this is basically what we have. At the end of the day, we're able to land our data inside of the database, right? This is the first process. The company is able to make their decisions, put together like a specific food item, right? Here they will have different items. This is one. The second one can be maybe a goosey soup price. They put it there. The third one, so they can have like 100 different combinations, right? When they put all those combinations together, they ingest it into the DB. Now that it's in the DB, the next question we should ask is, how will this record now go from their DB to this company that Marvelous One is running here, which is a food aggregator? Okay, we've gotten one step out of the way. The second step is, how will they fetch this? That is where API comes in. All right, API, as I mentioned, application programming interface. So the idea is, Mav's food, Mav's food should be able to build something we call a server, the backend server here, right? Sorry. Oh, I've been talking. Sorry. Okay. So Mav's food should be able to build a backend server. Thank you. So Mav's food should be able to build a backend server. Now, this backend server is basically what they can build with, different languages, whether they want to use Golang, whether it's JS, TS, different languages, even Java. Okay, you have heard of Java before? Yes, JavaScript. Um, what else? What else? C Sharp. There's so many languages, Alexa. But this time around, we're looking at Fast API. Fast API is also one of those frameworks. And if you're using Fast API, this is with Python. Okay. So Mapsfood will build this backend service. This backend service will read from their own database. Remember, I said a Postgres database, right? So it will read from their own database. They will be able to like make a call. Okay, what record do we have? Database would respond, and then there will be a caller. A caller is the person or the service that is calling this specific backend API, right? And this caller here, we usually refer to it as the client. Now, we call it a client, but that doesn't mean it must be. Yeah, of course, definitely. This is something you can do with Node.js, even much easier with Node.js. We'll do a simple, example here. I'll show you how it works. Okay. So this caller is something you would refer to the clients. So a caller is the service that is calling, the API. Now, I just want to clarify something. The caller must not be a front end. Okay. The caller must not be a front end. It can be a front end, on the web. It can be a front end on mobile. It can also be a backend, right? So it can also be a backend because they might want to, I mean, of course, they will even prefer to, call this from their backend and then, render it the way they want to render it on the front end. Who am I referring to here? I'm referring to, this company. So from their backend, they can choose to, so these are all colors, right? A front end, if they have a mobile application, their mobile application can call this. If they want to just call it straight from the web, so these are all colors, right? These are all colors, and you know, this diagram is just showing that they are all colors. They are not really calling this service, right? But they are calling this directly. Okay, so just keep that in mind. They are all clients. Let me just call them clients. Okay, so they are all clients, and now they can call our API. So I usually like to put numbers here. I'll say 1, 2. What do I mean? 1 means I am calling, 2 means I'm getting answer, right? So the client will call this. This is the API built by Mouse Food, and then this is Mouse Food, database. So remember that in this first process, the record already got to the database. So here, the API they build will fetch that item from their database and simply, present it back to them. They are the clients, whether they are using a backend or they are using a front end, it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they are actually calling something, right? They're actually calling something. Okay, so how does this work? They build the backend and then they give out, access to the company or the organization that needs to be able to make that call. Sometimes, I mean, most times you would want to protect that backend, by ensuring that the caller has what we call secrets and access keys, secrets and access. Let's just say the caller has credentials before they can call our API. Now I'm just showing you as an example. There are different levels to security, or should I say to credential, or should I say to access management. There are different ways to implement access management, but from a very basic understanding of API, the API serves as the interface between your data and the client that is calling, to get that data. Okay, let's quickly let me see. Yeah, I mentioned that the framework of choice is Fast API. So a framework is simply, something built to make, building applications with a language much easier, right? So a framework here like Fast API is built to make, web development, especially APIs, easier when you are, writing code with Python. So this is the Fast API documentation. I'm dropping this in the chat. You can simply, yeah, you can simply click on the link while I'm explaining, so you can follow me. Yeah, so this is built by I think Tiangolo, that's his name, right? Tiangolo. You can simply check out, I think, about. You'll see the information. I don't think his detail is here, but you can most likely see that information from the repository, right? Okay, let me click on Fast API people. Oh yeah, okay. So hey, this is me, Tiangolo. So this is the developer of Fast API. So let's go back to Fast API. I mentioned that you can also check out Flask. Flask was the most popular for a very long time. I think it's still very popular right now. We have other frameworks like Django, Pyramid. Uh, yeah, yeah, we have other Python frameworks. You must not learn only, Fast API. In your own spare time, you can jump into, learning other things. So just search for Python web frameworks, and you'll see a lot of them, right? We have Django, Flask, CherryPy, Web2Py. Yeah, so there are others. If you check very well, I'm sure you will see others. But yeah, I mean, we are looking at Fast API. So let's jump back into Fast API here. let's just click on get started. So I'll simply go to installation. Let's start from here. We have pip install fast API standard. This is what you use to install and import fast API. This is the way you import it. Let's go ahead and run this command. Okay, so I'm going to pull up my terminal here. So this is my terminal. I'm currently using a Mac. If you're using a Windows, make sure you have Python installed first, right? If you don't have Python installed, installation, just go to the Python website. I believe by now you already have it installed anyways. So just go to the Python website, download the latest version from here, and simply install. So I just dropped the link in the chat as well. All right. So I already have Python installed. Come in here and simply say, Python version. It shows you the version that you're currently running. I think I'm not running the latest one, but 3.13 is fine. So I will simply navigate to my desktop. Let's go to class. I think AI class. Yep. Okay. So let me remove some of these files here. Okay. So I'm going to simply say fast API. This is me creating, the directory, right? Fast API example. Now let's go into fast API example. So here I'm going to simply say pip. Let's see -m. Come on, -m. Sorry, Python -m. VMV. So I'm going to create that virtual environment. So now I have that virtual environment created. I'm going to simply, activate the virtual environment. So I have activated the virtual environment. In your own machine, you don't necessarily need to use .fish. I'm currently, let me deactivate this, deactivate. So I'm currently using .fish. Let me exit using .fish. Okay, you know what? Let me close that. Sorry, let me pull that up again. Okay, desktop class, AI class. Okay. All right. So let me just go to Bash. Now, if you are using like the default Bash or ZSH, right? If you're using default Bash or ZSH, all you have to do is to run the same similar command. You have env, you have bin, and then you have activate, right? So you see that this is also activated. Okay, I was using fish, and I usually prefer to just go with fish anyways as my shell, right? If you want to use fish, you can just go to fish shell. If you're using Ubuntu, any Linux distribution or Mac, you can simply come down to fish shell and download it. If you're using PowerShell or command prompt on Windows, I think the command is the command you use. I mean, it's not so different, right? I don't have a Windows machine here. I would have loved to also show you that, but yeah, let me see. Yeah, let me see. Windows. Okay, you know what? Let me just use this instead. Let's please stay on the free plan. I beg you in the name of God. Okay. So, what is the Windows bash command? Is it bash? CMD. Okay, CMD command to activate Python VMV. Okay, so yeah, let's just get that. I mean, it's very similar. I haven't used that in a while, but yeah, this is it. Okay, so you just have to, since I created my VMV using this name, which is what I have here, right? Then I just have to say VMV script activate part, and this would activate it on my machine. I hope you guys can see this very well. Let's ensure. How do I used to do this thing again? I can't remember. There's a way I used to zoom in. I think I probably disabled that zoom feature. Okay, I hope you guys can see my screen anyways. This is the command here. Okay, right. All right, anyways, let's go back into our shell, and we have this activated. To be activated, just run deactivate, and it simply goes off, right? Let's see, source deactivates. Why is it asking me to use source deactivate is deprecated? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So yeah, let me simply deactivate from here. Okay, and now let me go back into fish. Okay, go back into fish. I would simply say source. Yep. and now I have activated this. All right, nice. So now that we have activated this, the next thing we have to do is to install. So we have to, run this command to install this right here. So let's go ahead and install. All right, so this is currently installing. Just give it a while and it will be done. Okay, so yeah, installation is done. Let's open this up in VS Code. All right, so if you check VNV, you check LIB, you're going to see some of the things that have, been downloaded from this single package we just installed, right? These are some of the things that have been downloaded from this single package we installed, including the Fast API itself. So while downloading, it came in with some other things it needs to, run properly, including, HTTPX, that you can see here, Ginger 2 for templating, right, and a bunch of others, multi-path, for sending, files with a multi-platform data option. So yeah, let's just collapse this for now. So that this is what we have in our virtual environment, and right now we are working with this virtual environment right here. The next thing we have here is just to create a very simple example. So we'll create a file main.py, and then we'll just paste what we have here, and I would explain that. Okay. So I can simply do that from here. I can also jump into the terminal right inside of VS Code and simply say I'll simply say touch to create a file. So I'm using this command on a Mac, or you can just come in here and click on a new file to do main.py. Okay, so right here you have the main.py file. We can then paste in the simple example that we saw on the website. So what we're doing here is they're saying, okay, from typing import union, right? And then from fast API, import fast API. This is the base library we just created now. And then we have app equals fast API. So what you're doing here is you just initialized our app. So at this point, we just initialize our application. And then here, let me drop some comments. So we're defining the root endpoint. This is the root endpoint to say if somebody visits, this URL, let it just respond with hello world, right? This is the, base URL, which is slash. And here we have slash items, slash, item ID. The item ID you have inside of this curly brace is to say you can append a value. When you append a value like 1 or 2, what would happen here is that it will just return, the item ID, using this dictionary option in Python, it is automatically going to be rendered as a JSON because a fast API would make that happen, right? We are using app.get. Remember, we already initialized app as our fast API application. So when we say app.get, we are basically making, a request, to what we call a get endpoint, right? Now we have different verbs, when we talk about APIs, we have what we call verbs. So API verbs. So we have different API verbs. We have get, we have posts, we have puts, we have patch, we have deletes. Okay. Now there are a few others, but these are like the base, the standard ones, right? Get, post, put, patch, delete, and you can check out Postman. Postman is something I usually recommend for API testing, and basically you can use it to automate your API test. You can also use it to test your API as you're working. There are some other easier platforms like HTTPy. HTTPy is great. Insomnia is also good, right? I have multiple options. You can see I have an example endpoint I was testing here, right? This is Insomnia. It's awesome. I think with time, if you learn Postman, you can basically use any of them. Okay, so Insomnia is good. Postman is also HTTP is also great. Okay, so you can check them out, but we're going to stick to using Postman because it's more of the industry standard. Okay, so right here in Postman, let me just create. Let me see, where is my personal work? Okay, this is my personal workspace. Okay, so I have different collections. These are collections. Let me zoom in. I know you haven't used Postman before, so it's not something that you should you should bother yourself about. We'll get to, learn about it in one of our workshops. Okay. What I'm simply going to do here is I'm going to create a new collection. The collection is just a way for me to organize, the class and what I am doing in the class here. So let's just say our fast API example, because that is what we called our project. It must not be the same name. I'm only trying to make sure that we have some level of alignment here. Okay, and in here, I'm going to create a request. When I click to create a request, I have a simple request. Let's just say root endpoints. Root endpoint is because what we have here in VS Code, the first one is the root endpoint, right? Okay, and remember the root endpoint is just, in the root here, slash. Okay, so let me go back to Postman and use this to explain a couple of things. If you take a look at what we have here, you see we have, head, we have options, but the base, like I mentioned before, is get, post, put, patch, and delete. Okay, this is because what we are doing here, what we are building here, we'll call it, a RESTful API, right? A RESTful API. Okay. We call it a RESTful API. I mean, it's a standard, it's a standard called, REST. Okay. And the REST standard works with, JSON. So we have what we call JSON objects. You can simply, send in a JSON object. If you have done JavaScript before, it's just like saying, oh, I have name. My name is a string, right? Which is marvelous. I have age, which is a number, let's say 55, for example. And then I have maybe like valid, right? Let's just say true or false, that kind of thing. This is an example of a JSON object, right? Let's take this off. We'll get to discuss this some other time, but these are the verbs, right? The get verb is used to simply fetch records, okay? So this is used to fetch record or records. Okay, so it can be a single record, it can be a lot of records, right? We usually call this, resources. Okay, so in the API world, we call this a resource, right? So this is a resource. I would simply say resource for fetching the root of our API. This is another resource. Okay, so I can simply say resource for fetching an item by its ID, right? You see, the AI completion is simply telling me or giving me exactly the same thing I want to put in there. So this is giving me, the because it's also a get, right? So if I put something like a post, the moment I come down here and I say, at app post, and it simply says, okay, let's post an item. Um, let's go with item and not items. Sorry, 1 minute. Let's collapse this. Okay. Okay, so when I put item there, I want to post an item. It can automatically tell me, okay, I want to create an item, and this is the item name, and it says, okay, return the name. For now, we're just mocking it. We're not saving anything to any database yet. Now, if I put like a comment here, it says this is the resource for creating a new item. Right now, I just added a new resource. So instead of just having two of them, I now have three, right? The first one for getting the root, second one for getting a specific item, and then the third one for basically creating a new record. But of course, we're not really creating anything here. We're just mocking this for now. Okay, what do I mean by mock? When I say mock, I mean we're just testing it, but it's not real. Testing the functionality, maybe but I would say but with fake data or something. Okay, so that's a mock. All right. Okay. Post is for creating, right? So this is for creating records. Okay. Now puts is for updating the record or updating records. Okay. Now the thing about put is when you're using put, it's ideal that you use put to update everything. Now it's ideal. That does not mean it must work that way, but that is like best practice. If you have a record that has say name, let's say first name, last name, phone number. Okay, so you have different records here. Okay, so you have different records here. If you're using puts, it makes sense that you just want to come in here and update everything. How do you want to update? Maybe you also have like an ID, right? Or you want to put the ID elsewhere, maybe in the path. But let's just say you have an ID here that you can use to identify the specific user. Okay, so you can simply use this to do your put, which is to update everything. But if you're using patch, it's ideal that you are updating, a part of the record. Okay, so which means if I'm using part here, I can say, oh, maybe I just patch, maybe I just want to update like the last name, you know. Yeah, maybe I just want to update the last name. Now, mind you, this is standard. That doesn't mean get cannot do the work of post. I mean, you can literally use get to do everything here. If that's the way you want to, write your API, that is wrong. Okay, but I'm just telling you the reason why we follow this standard is so that other developers come into our code base, understand that, oh, we are leveraging the standard, the open API specification, and we are simply following that standard the right way. We are doing the right thing, using that standard. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now, delete is simply for deleting record. I will simply say record with S because you can use it to delete multiple records, a single record, just like that. Okay, so I want to be sure that this makes sense, to you guys, and then we can proceed. Does this make sense? Am I too fast? Do you think maybe I'm making it complex? Okay, let me know. This makes sense, right? Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, so let's jump back into the code here. So following our documentation, the next thing we can do is to run this. How do we run it? You can use the command fast API dev main.py. Yeah, I mean, you can also just run it, directly by calling. Can I exit this? Yes, I can. So we can just say Python main.py. Yeah, we can just run Python main.py, but the ideal way is to go with this because we did not include something called, if you want to run it with main.py, then you have to say, if name equals main, then, run main, right? If name equals main, then, basically do this. So yeah, I'll get to show you, in another example how this would work, but simply we're able to use the fast API, CLI command itself, which is this, right? And we're able to run this in development mode. So it says starting development server. It's running this file. That is the main file, Python main, right? That's the module. Every file you see in Python is a module, right? Yeah, every file in Python is a module. Okay, and yeah, it's currently running this. And if we click on this part, this is the server itself. If we click on this and we open this in our browser, it's telling us hello world because that is exactly what we have in the root here, right? Hello world. Okay. If I put out something like this, if I say name, Mav, if I put a comma here and I simply say, okay, we have a message, hello, I'm Mav, how can I assist you today? If I run this and I refresh, that is what we see here on the browser. So this is the root, right? What most people will do is just to use this to see if, our server is working. Some people will probably put that in the health. They can call this health, right? And here they can simply say /health with the comments here. Let's just say resource for health check. And then, of course, our return statement would probably carry something else, status okay, or it can say status okay and maybe like a message, API is healthy. So if we run this and we put /health, we get status okay, API is healthy to show that our API is working well. Okay, I personally like to put emoji, so I'll just say battery. So I'll say this is working fine. Go ahead, yeah. Just save, refresh. This is healthy. Now, why do you want to do something like this? Just in case this is your API is down, you can simply put the URL /health, and if it's down, this will not open. You know that, oh, there's something wrong, right? So yeah, I hope that makes sense. So this is just like, an example. And here, this is to simply get an item. So if I put, item, these are parts. The moment you start having, /this, you're already entering what we call parts. If you want to implement a query, so let me show you. We have parts. I would say implement, I would say, as example. Okay, read it like this. Example showing a query parameter. Okay, so it's simply giving us, yeah, that's query parameter automatically. I'll show you how this would work. This is query string. Okay, we'll get to that. This is a part. An item here is a part, and then we can pass in a specific item. When you see a brace like this, it shows that whatever is passed there, you can access it from here. Okay, whatever is passed here, you can access it from here. So if I go back up here and I do item, I think items slash, and I put one, it tells me item one Q null, right? So Q here is just saying null, but Q can actually be from here. You see, we have it's a union, of a certain type of string. But yeah, we're not passing anything anyways. So if I put something like this, let's say I now go ahead to put like a query, right? If I go ahead to put like a query type, just like what I have here, I can actually grab the query. Or let me just use this to show you the example. If I say search, and when I put that search, I simply come in here to put the query. I think, if I'm not mistaken, yep, that is the query param. Hold on, please. Query param. Sometimes I usually forget what it looks like. So yeah, it's the question mark, I believe. Then the key and value, that's correct. Okay, so the key and value, let's say name equals Mav, something like this. What is it giving me? I think I should have that equals, if I'm not mistaken. Nope. Okay, so yeah, I think old age is already kicking in. Okay, so give me the actual query param. I would have just used the AI there in VS Code to give me the actual example I need. So yeah, I have yeah, is a question mark consists of the key value. Oh, I think that was actually correct. Yep. Okay, so that was correct. It says detail not found. Probably because in my code I am not returning that. So query equals return query and return the result of that query. But why am I not getting? Yeah, that's not right. Let's call the actual thing. Okay, hold on a bit. Hold on a bit. Parameter with an example. Okay, let's do that. So if I have search, I have query equals example, and if I should run that search just like this, so I have the default query. Why can't I get name equals mark? Oh, I see. I see. Yeah, I see where that is actually going wrong. That is exactly why I would prefer to always do this anyways. So HTTP without the S, we put our port, our IP, which is local. Now your IP local here, we're using 127.0.0.1. That's also same as localhost, by the way. And our ports, I think I forgot to mention that our port is 8,000. That is the default port we're using if we check the code, right? Our port here is 8,000. We can change it. Remember, I mentioned something earlier when I said if we use if name equals main, we can go ahead to change the port. So if I do 5,000, we can change this to 5,000. Just keep that in mind, anyways, until we get to do something like that later. Okay, so back to the whole query thing. If I put port 8,000 just like this, it gives me the home. Remember, that's our root. If I now come into our query params here, right? If I do slash search, I come into the query param and I say maybe name, right? You see, so yeah, so we don't need to put the equal. So name, and I put Mav. So yeah, let's do Mav. It's 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock. Okay. So this is giving me the defaults. I'm going to take out that default right now. Let's just keep it as a string, and it's expected to give us that particular item. So if I go ahead and run this now, so it's telling us the detail is missing. I see. Okay, so which means what we were actually getting here. Let me go and take this off. So that's quite interesting. So I think this is wrong. Okay, just hold on. Let me quickly do this right here. By the way, you can see this in the example anyways. If you come in here and you just search for query params, so I think the mistake is it should be underscore params. Yeah. Okay, get it now. So it should be underscore params. Okay, just like we can see there, this is a path param. Okay, so it should be underscore params. Now let's try that. Query underscore params. Let's just verify that that works. Nope. I refresh. Interesting. Now running again. Okay, so it still says failed. Just want to know why we're having failed for this. I mean, definitely I'm making a mistake somewhere. So yeah, just have to be sure. Let's go back to the documentation one more time. Give me a minute. I'll click on, can we search again? Request class query param. Hope I don't have to import anything here. So I'll simply come back here now and say fast API example for query param. All right, so let's just get an example from here. So what exactly is a query param? Where you have something that looks like this. So you're able to get different. Oh, I see. Yeah, I was supposed to import something. That's why that wasn't working. Okay, I even mentioned that. Hope I don't have to import something, but yeah, I have to import. So I have to import query, which is already part of Fast API, and then I have to proceed. So I think that was refreshed automatically, anyways. Let's try that one more time. Let's see. Um, okay, so let's see what we have here. So query is a string. Okay. And then we have a way of configuring the query. This query is just to give us a sample pagination anyways. We can just use this example. Okay, and then we can just return query equals, let's do Q, just to see what was passed in. I'm going to refresh this. I hope I don't have to install that anymore. Okay. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so right here it says query is null. It is not giving us the exact thing we should have. But let's also check, to make sure we're not having any error here. Maybe I have to run this one more time. Let's check from here. So this is the query we have. So it still tells us that our query is null, which means it doesn't see this as a query, and that is not right. That's quite interesting. Couple of things might have changed here. So let's see. We have fast API and query, app.gets, read item. Okay. I hope it's not because I did not include a sync, but I don't think that is the case. Probably because I removed that slash. Let's try that again. Still get the same thing. Okay. All right. I think I should pass API documentation query param. Let's go straight to their documentation. I just want to be sure, just to be sure that I'm not missing anything. Yeah, so we have pretty much same examples here, just like what I have entered before. And there's no sign that we missed anything. Okay, so this is exactly what we're doing. Okay, so this is exactly what we're doing. And the fact that I didn't walk shows is actually from my end, not even in the code base, but let's try this one more time. Okay, are we failing to install anything? Are we failing to import anything? Yes, we are. But let's just take that off. So I expect that to just be passed in automatically. Oh, I see. Yeah, take that back. this back and refresh. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this one more time. And we are still, so it's still giving us the same thing, field required, even when it is not required. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, I see. I see. Yeah, I see where the mistake actually came from. Yeah, so the name that I was using here was wrong. So when I say name, I was actually supposed to pass in the name. Yeah, so apologies, guys. I see the mistake. It's quite a simple one. Just totally forgot that. So when you say name, you pass in name. I was passing in the wrong thing all this while. So name equals Mav, and can run that again. I'll say if name, not if query. Okay. So yeah, I mean, it was a little error, but I think it points out something. So when you're using the query param, you just have to be very specific. If we're accepting a query param that should be, so let me go back. What we were accepting before was actually correct, but I was passing in the wrong thing. So I was expected to pass in Q specifically, right? And you say I have mouth, okay? So yeah, that was a mistake. So if I do name, if I do first name, for example, first name with the underscore, and I leave this as a string. I do last name as another string. Let's take this up. So in here, I should be able to say, oh, I am returning first name with first name, just like this, last name with last name, just like this. Okay, so if I come in here in the query param, I should pass, the first name as Mav, first name as Mav, and then I should be able to also, like put in the last name. So let me see. Give me a minute. Quickly forgot how to do that. So last name. Okay, so that should be our and last name equals Solomon, for example, without the string. Solomon. Okay, so then I would have something like this, right? I passed it in as a query param. A path param is the first one we tried, where we just have like, slash this. Okay, so this is an example of a path param here. This one is a path param. I just added the parameter to the path, and this one is a query param. I add it as a query. Okay, yeah, so that took some time to figure out. It's been a while since I probably more than 2 3 months since I touched on this, but yeah, it's pretty much straightforward once you figure it out. Okay, so that is simply how you go. That is simply how you get to use the query param. Let me go back to the base page. Okay, so we've learned how to install, we've learned how to create like a sample, how to use the path param, the query param. The next thing you might want to do right now is to say, oh, how do we go about using databases? We're not going to use databases in this specific class, but the point is that when you're working with APIs, you should be able to specifically design your API to function well for your specific use case. Okay, so we can say apart from the root, we have the specific endpoints to fetch foods, right? So if we have like a specific endpoint to fetch foods, we can basically use this to fetch foods. Now, this is just working with an example anyways. We really don't have any database here. So, but we can use this to say, oh, we want to fetch, all the food items we have. This is the point where you would then go and bring in this food. Okay, so you have to bring it in from somewhere. This is the point where you have to say fetch food item from our Postgres database. Now, of course, we really don't have like a Postgres database configured here. Okay, so just keep that in mind. We don't have a Postgres database configured. I believe that if you've watched the video from the class, then you should have learned about MongoDB, right? We actually have like a MongoDB tutorial there. So just I think about three to eight videos, I guess. So if you watch those videos, then it will be easy for us in the next class, because what we're going to be using is MongoDB. It's quite easier to get started with. All you have to do is install MongoDB on your machine, and you get started with PyMongo, the library. Let's discuss that in the next class. I would want you to explore more on Fast API. I believe there's a video that we have, but we did not upload. I actually made a Fast API video, think like last year, right? But it's not uploaded on the academy, so I will check it out. If anything has changed, I will have to quickly record another one and share with us, right? And we would learn how to use this to would create a simple application, with Fast API after learning databases. Please watch those videos, 8 videos, learn how to use MongoDB so that we can create a very simple API. Given our example here, this is what we're going to cover in the next class. We are simply going to build like a simple API that connects to our database that can give us, we can load food items that will be structured like this, okay? And we'll be able to use our API to create a new food item, fetch the food items, or even fetch a single food item, okay? So we're going to create an API in next class. We will create a simple API to create food. So creates a food item, fetch single food item, fetch all food items, delete single food item, and maybe delete multiple items. Okay, so we're going to create an API that can do this, and we're going to be using MongoDB as our database for the project. All right, so this is what we're going to be doing in the next class. Let's prepare so that we'll simply use MongoDB. Please watch those videos before the class so that you'd have, you can come with your questions, and it will be easier while I'm explaining some of those things. And take your time to also go through the Fast API documentation. And I would do well to send in a material for Fast API tomorrow, right? Yeah. Thank you. I think that will be all. Someone asked if Node.js can do this as well. Yes, Node.js can do this. Golang can do this. Like, I mean, it's even here very fast. It is a very high performance on par with Node.js and Golang. Um, they have a couple of libraries that also make it super effective, especially for AI developers. Libraries like Pydantic that works seamlessly with LangChain, right? So we're going to explore some of these as we continue to learn. Thank you. And please remind me about the whole database thing I mentioned in the next class so that I can explain more and yeah, basically give more details about databases, for backend. That's all. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions before we meet again? How many of you do I have on this call today? Oh, interesting. I can see I have more numbers in today's class. I can see Taiwo, Edwin, Abishola, Joe. Wow, okay, nice. Lola. Lola, it's been a while. I think like over 6 months, since I saw your name. You've been enjoying. Oh, you have a question? You want to speak? Go ahead. How are you? All right. Okay. Nice to have you on the call. I'll see you guys in the next class, where we explore databases. Thanks for joining, and have a wonderful night. Bye. Bye-bye.